I'm sure that there will be theories out there that, oh, all you need to do is remove UNRWA and, everything is going to be hunky-dory. It isn't, because there is nothing on the ground that has got the infrastructure and the numbers of people who have done this work for decades.
Aid organizations are warning the Israeli government's decision to effectively ban the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, could cost lives. The Israeli Knesset voted to pass legislation last night banning the agency from working in Israel, accusing it of colluding with Hamas in Gaza. Both Britain and the US have criticized the move, with Keir Starmer calling the development gravely concerning. Well, I've been speaking to Baroness Aminka Helic, a former foreign policy expert, former government advisor appointed to the Lords by David Cameron. And I began by asking her for her thoughts on this decision.
Banning UNRWA is not just about allegation of some stuff being connected to Hamas. It is about the fact that UNRWA legitimizes Palestinian refugee status and the right to return. So that's a big thing that looms large over this decision. Apart from that, it immediately violates the UN Charter, and the State of Israel has obligation under international law. It will and can affect overall 5.9 million Palestinian refugees that are eligible for UNRWA services, because they have a big network of the activities that they do. They run over 700 schools, 140 primary healthcare clinics. They rehabilitate houses, infrastructure, and provide support throughout. I know that some of this has already been destroyed, but UNRWA is the only organization that there is on the ground that can still help in the survival of the people that are currently living or surviving in the territory of Gaza, but elsewhere as well.
What then, in your view, then will be the impact of this ban on Palestinians? Are the services you're describing there, the work that UNRWA does, is that replaceable by other agencies and other sources?
I don't think so, because you can. I'm sure that there will be theories out there that, oh, all you need to do is remove UNRWA and everything is going to be hunky-dory. It isn't, because there is nothing on the ground that has got the infrastructure and the numbers of people who have done this work for decades and are capable of providing support for. These are not refugees, and these are not people living in Gaza, let's say, or West Bank prior to 7th of October. These are people who have been living under a constant bombardment. I mean, the most ferocious attacks, and really are at the end of their strength. And removing aid, medicine, shelter, support that UNRWA is providing, it's kind of like the final chapter in what one could call of collective punishment. And that, I think that's what Felipe Lazzarini has called it, nothing else than collective punishment.
Right. Well, collective punishment, as you know, is a phrase with significance in international law. You're suggesting then this is a war crime.
I am not suggesting anything. There is international law. There are lawyers. It has been written, studied, and crafted for people who have expertise to judge what is a humanitarian breach of humanitarian international law, what is a war crime, and what is everything else. Mm-hmm. It is not down to me to speculate. It is down to those who have expertise in judging that to make that judgment.
Okay, that's a legal judgment, but you use the expression collective punishment. You clearly believe this
of course. I do.
So tell me more about that view and why you believe it's an attempt to punish Palestinians as a whole and not simply react to UNRWA.
Well, it is what has been going on for the last 12 months in terms of number of people who have been driven to the destruction, disease, and despair on the ground. Even in the words of our foreign secretary yesterday, when he made a statement, he said that Israel's evacuation order in the north has displaced tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians who are driven from destruction and disease to destruction, disease, and despair. These people are being bombed, starved. They don't have access to medicine. They don't have access to water. They don't have access to aid that we, British people, provide. That aid is sitting blocked, cannot get in. Not that every day, instead of hundreds of children that have been wounded and taken out of the country, they can't.
Yes.
The latest UNICEF statement says that one child is taken out per day. I don't know what this can be called but collective punishment, because it is indiscriminate killing of civilians, whether they are men, women, children, babies, indiscriminate targeting of schools, hospitals, shelters. I don't know what you call it.
We've now had this criticism from the government of Britain, of the United States, and from the European Union. What more could and should those governments do?
Listen, I was listening to the Foreign Secretary yesterday when there was a statement, and to his credit, he's put out very strong words, but these strong words need to be followed by strong action. Israel is not an earthquake, it's not a tsunami, it's not a natural disaster. It is a state, as you have just said, that has got a government, it has got parliament, it has got system. And if you put that government, parliament system under pressure, with the leverage that we can exercise, it will respond.
Right.
We have not done that so far.
Right. So what pressure and what strong action, as you describe it, do you believe should be taken?
I think we should not be selective. We should look at all set of tools that we have, whether that is taken to the UN Security Council. And I know that there would be countries that would be unwilling to see that. And we should also look into what support we provide to Israel.
When you say look at what support we provide to Israel, is that a way of saying we should take sanctions against Israel? And if it is, what sanctions do you have in mind?
I don't have anything, I haven't really, I'm not sitting here with a list and a menu, but Foreign Office will know exactly what kind of options it has on the table.
That was Baroness Arinka Helic, the former government advisor, speaking to me just a short while ago before the show. Now, let's get the thoughts then of Michal Cotler-Wunsh, who is a former member of the Israeli parliament and a current special envoy for combating anti-Semitism for Israel. Welcome to you.
Thank you, John, for having me.
You're welcome. What are your thoughts from what you heard there from Baroness Helic, and also supported, as it was earlier on, by Baroness Amos, the former Undersecretary at the United Nations? It suggested this is unjustified, that it will cause suffering and deprivation and possibly death to large numbers of Palestinians.
Actually, the really concerning part of it for me, John, is to hear the Baroness and others that have issued these statements that champion UNRWA as what we know today to show with fact, not only that participated in the war crimes and crimes against humanity perpetrated on October the 7th, but in the actual war crimes that hold the Palestinians in Gaza hostage by Hamas, a genocidal terror organization for whom human tragedy is the strategy. UNRWA workers literally not only participated in the thousands who infiltrated the state of Israel on October the 7th, and I remind us there was a ceasefire on October the 6th, and Israel hasn't been in Gaza since 2015. Yeah. Not only did those UNRWA workers, teachers, doctors participate actively in the attack on the state of Israel on October the 7th, but in fact, they continued to hold hostages in their own homes. So the fact that UNRWA, that has colluded with Hamas, a genocidal terror organization, but one proxy of an Islamic regime in Iran that has not only on October 7th, but since October 7th, continued waging war on the state of Israel with its other proxies in a multi-front attack, Hezbollah from the north, the Houthis from the south, Iraq from Iraq, including today with barrages of rockets in violation of international law with thousands of rockets, each a double war crime, not only targeting and today, as of today, murdering Israeli civilians, including children playing in a soccer field, and as I said, just today, including a civilian. Not only has UNRWA participated in all of that, but UNRWA, in fact, indoctrinated, taught with your funding, with your tax dollars, the UK and Canada and Germany and France, indoctrinated, inculcated the 7,000 plus barbaric savages who perpetrated those atrocities with blood libel and anti-Semitism that would not be allowed to be taught in the UK. And in fact, it continues to indoctrinate Palestinian children in Gaza right now. So what is shocking for me is actually the obsession with UNRWA that refuses to see, even though we have Palestinians who grew up in UNRWA refugee camps, telling us that UNRWA is part of the problem and not part of the solution.
Now, when I put the Israeli accusations about UNRWA's involvement in October the 6th, she gave an answer which will be familiar to you. The UN carried out an investigation. 9 members of UNRWA were sacked, and I understand you will not accept that answer. What about the point that UNRWA is composed, though, of thousands of people who care for millions of Palestinians, and they will be caught up, they will suffer when it comes to food supplies, medical treatment, as well as education, and there could be needless deaths. How do you answer that question of, well, what Lady Herich describes as collective punishment?
More than anything, actually, if you care for the human rights of Palestinians in Gaza, you should recognize that UNRWA is a part of the problem and not part of the solution. And I'll be very clear. UNRWA was born in sin. It is the single refugee agency that was at the time formed for a limited time in order to enable one group of refugees, Palestinians, whereas all other refugees in the world have a separate agency that cares for them, and is the single refugee agency in the world that passes down refugee status from generation to generation.
Okay, but Michal, forgive me for interrupting, because you've made your point, and it's important that you do get a chance to make those points.
Sure, thank you.
However, millions of Palestinians could suffer as a result of all of this, who are not part of UNRWA, and it's argued that the place of UNRWA cannot be filled by other agencies. So what about those innocents?
Well, that argument is false, because we clearly know that in other cases where there are refugees, and we can have a conversation about what refugee status means and if it can be passed on from generation to generation for one single group of people, that is actually the perpetuation of a forever conflict. That is for another day. But we know that in every other setting, there are, in fact, humanitarian organizations, and there could be in this setting as well, actual humanitarian organizations that make sure that the food, that the trucks that were referred to in one of your interviews, I believe, actually arrive at who they are destined to arrive at. Do not fall into the hands of that Hamas genocidal terror organizations, the organization that uses its own people or the people of Gaza as human shields, as human sacrifices, that have shot Gazans trying to escape Gaza. Instead of enabling those Gazans to receive the humanitarian aid, and by the way, instead of international pressure on the very borders that, when we know, just as with Ukraine, the pressure on all other countries, for example, Egypt, to actually enable those fleeing the conflict so that they are not in harm's way. That has not been done. And instead, we are actually enabling an organization that has been colluding with Hamas, with evidence and proof provided to the international community, and that Hamas, that genocidal terror organization, continues to be emboldened to use its own civilians as human shields, as human sacrifices, and so on. And so that is, to me, the shocking piece of
Michal,
the, I'm going to say, obsession with UNRWA.
Right, Michal, thank you for joining us this afternoon. You will know that your arguments are not accepted by the British or American or European Union leaders, but we will see how this argument develops and keep you across all of the details as it develops.